Hello and welcome to Cryptid by State, North Carolina. We are nearly halfway through this series, with this video being our 24th entry. This state came highly requested, and as usual, when something gets a lot of votes, I start to become nervous, wondering if there really aren't a lot of cryptids to be found in a certain location. Luckily, this wasn't the case here, and I feel that you should enjoy today's adventure. Addressing the elephant in the room, I am sorry for this video being later than normal. Last week, I became really busy with our 4th of July block party, our son's going away party, and the rest of my time was tied up in putting together my wife's new office space. As such, I am sorry for the delay, and I hope you understand. So now that the bus is filled up, we can continue our cryptid family road trip, going from our previous location of Louisiana and traveling to North Carolina. Historically, the area of North Carolina was inhabited by various Native American tribes. Originally, this mainly consisted of those in the Mississippian culture. Eventually, specific tribes would be found in certain areas. Along the coast were Algonquian-speaking tribes, the Iroquoian-speaking tribes were found in the interior, in the southeast, the Siouan tribes made it their home. In 1540, Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto ventured to the land, and he had a meeting with the native tribes of Joora, which is near present-day Morganton. Then, in 1567, Spanish captain Juan Pardo ventured to the area to claim the land for Spain. In doing so, he established a settlement in Joora and renamed it Fort San Juan. This would not work out well, since the Native Americans burned 6 of the forts he had set up, and killed all but one of the soldiers stationed there. In 1584, England decided to try their hand at colonizing the area, and sent explorer Sir Walter Raleigh, whose last name would later be adopted as the state's capital. In his travels, he established 2 different settlements. Both failed, one of which would become a famous historical mystery known as the Roanoke Colony. In 1650, King Charles II would establish Carolina's borders and give it its name in honor of his father, King Charles I, which in Latin is Carolus. Carolina split into North and South in 1710 due to a dispute over who governed them. It is interesting to note that famed pirate Blackbeard actually ran his ship, Queen Anne's Revenge, aground in Beaufort Inlet in June of 1718, and was later killed in Ocracoke on November 22nd of that same year. North Carolina became one of the 13 colonies in 1729, but it did contain all of Tennessee at that time. On November 21st, 1789, North Carolina became the 12th area to become a state. I must note that I found it odd that South Carolina actually became a state the year prior to this. North Carolina's flag is a very unique one. This flag was adopted on March 2, 1885, and its original design was said to have been created by an artist named William G. Brown. Let's start with the colors. Blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Red is for hardiness and valor, and as usual, white is for purity and innocence. On the left side, we have the state's initials, with a white star between them, symbolizing the land as one of the original 13 colonies. There are 2 dates, with the top one being May 20th, 1775, which represents the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. This was considered the first declaration of independence in the 13 colonies. Below this is the date April 12th, 1776, which represents the Halifax Resolves. This was when the colony requested freedom from Great Britain. Okay, so let's look at those cryptids. North Carolina really isn't a hot spot for cryptids, but it is known for various ghost sightings and lights. Even as such, I was able to uncover quite a few of these hidden creatures. I think it is best to start our journey off with some beings that are said to make the water their home. Our first few stories involve beings that we rarely get a chance to talk about in any shape or form, and that would be mermaids. On Cape Fear River, there was a point that intersected the Deep River and Haw River. This point formed a sandbar that was locally known as Mermaid Point since the early 1700s. It was along this spot that for years people claimed to see mermaids swimming in the water or near the sandbar. Many a traveler would claim that while walking by the river at night, they would hear the voices of females laughing and singing emanating from the water. As they drew near, the silhouettes of women could be seen sitting on a sandbar. The thing is that while they had the upper body and heads of women, their lower portions resembled that of a fish. These beings would frequently sit on that spot brushing their hair, but if anyone tried to talk to them or make a noise, they would quickly vanish into the water. Now, during the Revolutionary War, many battles took place near that very spot, and a few years later, the water rose up and submerged the sandbar. Since that time, there haven't been any more sightings of these creatures, at least that are publicized. With these encounters, it is frequently mentioned that many of the witnesses came across the Mermaids after visiting the nearby Ambrose Ramsay's tavern. So it is possible drinking could have played a part here, but there were reports from people who didn't visit the bar. Keeping this in mind, a story that was provided to me from a longtime viewer named James Kasusnik tends to lend credence to these mermaid claims. An encounter near the rivers mentioned was said to have happened in the early 1990s and 2000s. The discrepancy here is due to the witness wanting to remain anonymous. A woman decided to sit on a large rock by the river, intent on reading a book while her husband went fishing upstream. After a while, she heard voices and footsteps, and when she looked up, she saw two boys were playing on the opposite side of the bank. To her horror, she noticed a form walking in the water towards them. It was described as being human-like with pale skin, long black hair, sharp serrated teeth in its mouth, and it appeared to be grinning. The creature didn't seem to notice the woman, but its attention was fully on the boys. As the creature neared, the boys noticed it and grabbed pointy sticks to defend themselves. Before anything could happen, the boys' father called for them and they ran away from the bank. The woman claimed that the creature appeared visibly upset, with a creepy look on its face. After a while, it slowly moved on further up the river. According to the story, the woman claims that she was certain it was a fairy of some sort, but I have to wonder if it wasn't a mermaid or merman. If this wasn't all strange enough, then we have to look at a siren that has been claimed to live in the French Broad River. Stories about this being have been around since 1845. Much like a siren would, this creature is said to enact a plan where it affects a person's mind and will continually lure them in for days on end. This is done by both showing up in a person's dreams and while they are awake. Finally, the lure will be too much and a person will eventually walk to the river's edge. In some versions of this tale, it will either emerge from the water or will simply be standing there waiting. It is said to take the form of a nude woman with dark skin and dark hair. As the victim reaches out to her, she will grab their arms, and it is then that her skin becomes cold, covered in scales, and her face takes on a ghastly appearance that is said to resemble a skull. At this point, it is too late, and she drags her victim under the water. Now obviously this story may be a blend of legend, but with so many other mermaid-like sightings, you have to wonder if there isn't some truth to it. To round this water section out, we need to investigate Lake Norman, which is said to have its own Nessie-like cryptid known as Normie. Lake Norman is a man-made lake that was created between 1959 and 1964 when the Catawba River was dammed. In its creation, a town had to be evacuated, and many of these buildings still remain under the water's surface. Oddly enough, even though this is not a natural lake, many large fish have been caught in the water. For years, visitors and residents have reported seeing a giant creature in the lake, but descriptions do vary. Some claim it looks very much like a plesiosaur, while others say it resembles a scaly crocodile-like being. Scuba divers visiting the underwater buildings have surfaced with stories of seeing a giant fish that was large enough to swallow a person whole. It was said to have a dog-like head, red eyes, and it was attracted to the divers' flippers. As such, many refuse to dive in certain areas that they feel the creature calls its home. One of this creature's favorite habits is bumping against boats and other watercraft. On September 6, 2014, a man named Nate and his girlfriend were on a jet ski when they saw a 14-foot creature emerge from the water in front of them. In terror, they sped away, but in the report, he claims his girlfriend no longer has an interest in swimming in that water. Rightfully so. On February 5, 2016, a man named John Eds claimed that while fishing on the lake in his boat, it was struck with such a force that it caused him to fall into the water. When he managed to get back into his craft, he saw a 15-foot-long creature similar to Nessie swimming away from him. On July 10, 2017, a man simply known as BT said he saw a dinosaur-like creature surface for a few minutes and then resubmerge. These are a few sightings, but there is a page dedicated to this cryptid and its sightings. I'll include a link to it in the description. Just as a heads up, some people are obviously reporting made-up sightings, but there are quite a few of them that seem really legit. Moving on to a couple of unique cryptids that really don't fit into any type of normal category. Starting off, we have recent reports of Pterosaur sightings. Now, with any sightings of this nature, I like to point out that while descriptions may not match with current scientific ideas of how a pterosaur looks, these reports only claim that they look like the old version. In that, it may be described as a pterosaur, but it might be something totally different. On March 24, 2013, near sunset, a man was driving on a highway towards Raleigh when he saw a massive creature flying over his car about 20 feet away. It was described as having a 6-foot wingspan, its leathery wings were bony, and it had a claw in the middle. It had a long pointed beak with a cone shape on the back of its head, and it had a long tail that extended in a spade shape. Another sighting was reported in Jacksonville, and it looked the same as described above, other than it had pale green colored skin, and the tail was said to be a diamond shape. On January 4, 2021, a veterinary technician named Cynthia Lee was driving to work in Raleigh when she saw a similar creature, and it was featherless, had the cone on the back of its head, and its tail ended in a diamond-shaped bulb. Oddly enough, when she told her family of the event, her mother and uncle both claimed to have seen the same type of creature many years prior. Probably one of the most famous cryptids, and one that is frequently ruled a hoax, even though there isn't evidence to prove this, would be the beast of Blattenburg. This creature really doesn't have one description, but it is said to have black fur, huge paws, is about 5 to 6 feet long, and resembles a bear mixed with a dog or cat. Regardless of what it looks like, it is known to be very powerful. The first attack occurred on December 29, 1953, in the town of Clarkton, and it viciously killed a dog. Then, on December 31st, it killed 2 more large dogs. It was said to have killed the first dog around 10:30 p.m. and left for some unknown reason, which gave the farmer time to wrap the body up in a blanket for burial in the morning. The beast then returned and took the dog's carcass with it. At 1:30, the creature came back and killed the second dog and took the body to the woods. When the carcasses were found, the head of one of the dogs was crushed, and the jaw had been removed of the other. From January 1st to the 3rd, 3 more dogs were killed by either being crushed or torn apart. Oddly enough, the 3rd one was actually brought in for autopsy, and no blood was found in the body, and its jaw had been smashed into the skull. The missing blood was a feature that many of the prior victims shared as well. On January 5th, a rabbit on a farm was found cleanly decapitated. The following day, a woman named C.E. Kinlaw was outside her house in the morning when she saw the beast stalking towards her. When she screamed out, her husband emerged with the shotgun and scared the creature away. In his report, he said the prints left behind looked like that of a large cat. In the following days, farmers reported their pigs, cows, and even goats being killed in a very similar fashion. In fact, one of the goats was found with the skull completely crushed and flattened. The town banded together to hunt this vampiric beast down, but other than killing a bobcat, they were unsuccessful. Things went quiet for a while, but then similar events started to take place in 2006. In Lexington, 60 goats were found with all their blood drained and their skulls were crushed. More goats were found killed at other farms, and in the town of Bolivia, a pit bull was found dead and missing quite a few of its parts. From all reports, this being is very elusive, and the only sound it makes is that of a woman's scream. As usual, I couldn't talk about all the cryptids found in this beautiful state, so here we are at the honorable mention section. Bigfoot is frequently sighted here, especially in the Uwharrie Forest and in McDowell County. One of the more famous of these beings is simply known as Nobby. I feel this would be a good spot for the Boojum. It is a legendary creature that is similar to a Sasquatch, but has some really interesting attributes. such as the origins behind the word hootenanny. I will leave a link to that article so you can read it for yourself. Another common sighting is a black panther. There are claims that this state does have its own version of the chupacabra. I mentioned the beast of Blattenburg previously, but there is also another creature that is similar, known as the wampus cat. This story is fairly interesting, so I may be revisiting it in the video on Georgia. There are reports of a hellhound in Val Crucis that will emerge from a graveyard and actually chase down cars. I didn't get to talk about it, but there was a sea monster hit by a steamer known as the Santa Clara on December 30th, 1947, off of Cape Lookout. It was said to resemble a form of mosasaur. I will include the Moon-Eyed People here, which was said to be a tribe of people who were around before Europeans visited North America. They were said to live in the mountains and be unable to see in the daytime, although most historians theorize that they may have actually been a race of people who were mixed with early explorers. So as I end this video, I hope that you enjoyed it and that I made North Carolina proud. This state was a little tough, only due to it having more ghost stories than cryptid ones. As I have stated in previous uploads, I am planning on making a video next month where we do a bit of a recap of all the states we have covered. Not only this, but I wanted to go over which states are still hiding their creatures. It has been brought to my attention that many of you are wanting to see the list more frequently so you can vote appropriately. So here is the map of which states are left, and I hope it helps. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you share my videos with someone you know who may enjoy this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.